Hello and welcome to the Funding Your Postgraduate Studies talk film set of slides. My name's Richard Scrace. Rather than working for the university, actually I work for the Falmouth and Exeter Students' Union, where I'm the manager of the advice service. And in this little talk, I'm going to cover the following topics. How much does it cost to be a postgraduate student? Then I'll tell you something about the government master's loan scheme, and then something about master's scholarships. Then we'll turn to the government's PhD doctoral loan scheme, PhD studentships, and lastly, we'll touch on other sources of funding. So starting with costs, and in particular, tuition fee costs, and they vary from programme to programme, so I can't give you specifics in a presentation of this sort. Rather, what you'll need to do in relation to your specific course is you'll need to check the university's website. However, what I can tell you is once you have established what your fees are going to be, then ordinarily the university's approach is that they're paid in 2 instalments, and those instalments fall in September at the start of the academic year and January, pretty much the start of term 2, semester 2, and 2 instalments, so 50% each. And then in advance of starting the course, the university ordinarily will expect postgraduate student to pay a deposit. International applicants, that's £1,500. Home and Channel Islands applicants, £1,000. And then if you're if you're in receipt of a postgraduate loan, then your deposit is reduced to £250. The other aspect of living costs, apart from your tuition fee, the other part of your cost is your living costs, I should have said, sorry. And there is a table that is intended to give you an indication of what those living costs might be. It's not intended to be definitive, but rather my aim in producing it is to give you an idea or an indication of what your living costs might be as a student with the university, postgraduate student across a 52-week programme. I shan't go through it item by item, but what I will just draw your attention to is the figure at the top, accommodation, because it's the largest single item, and the one at the bottom there, which is the total. So accommodation is probably going to cost you a little over half of your total non-tuition fee outgoings, your living costs, so around about £6,500. And the total amount you're going to need across the year is probably around £12,000. And so before you start the course, obviously you need to take care to ensure that you've got access to that money. So how might you fund those two items, fees and living costs? The focus in this presentation will be students who are domiciled in England and therefore receive or are eligible to apply for money in the form of a postgraduate loan through Student Finance England, albeit this table summarises the position for all 4 home nations. But my focus, as I say, is going to be England, and it summarises the position for both master's students and PhD students, and I'll go into a bit more detail on each in just a moment. Starting with master's loan. So you can borrow up to 11,222, at least that was the amount for a 2020 entry. It may be marginally higher for September 2021. And the money is borrowed through the student loans company. Eligibility, those are the details there set out. Under 60 years old at the time of starting the course, ordinarily resident in the UK prior to 1st of September in the year of starting the course. And this must be the first higher degree, so the first non-undergraduate degree that you've studied. And any master's subject is an eligible subject. Full-time, part-time or distance learning at any UK university, though it doesn't cover postgraduate certificates or postgraduate diplomas, so it has to be a master's course. The money is paid to you as the student, and you can spend the money on whatever you like. I'll qualify that in a moment, though. It's paid to you, not the university, as I just indicated, and there's an expectation probably that it's used for your tuition fees. So of course you could blow it on anything you like, but that won't do you much help if you need it to actually complete your course. It's paid in three termly instalments, and those instalments are 33%, 33%, 34% across terms 1, 2, and 3 respectively. To apply and indeed to get more information on the scheme itself, there's a link, and I'll ensure you get these or have access to these slides so that you can click on that link. And there's some more information as well through the university's own website, and similarly there's a link there. Doctoral loans work differently. They're over a longer period, so not surprisingly perhaps that they offer that they work differently. The amount available is up to £26,445 across the whole course. Again, that's the amount for a 2020 start. Repayments combined with master's loans. So if you've had a master's loan previously and now you're starting a PhD, then those two sums are combined for the purpose of repayment rather than being repaid separately. The eligibility requirement of ordinary residence is the same as it was on, as I mentioned, on the master's loan scheme. And significantly, the intended exit qualification must be a PhD. So a doctoral loan is not available if, for instance, a student is starting an MPhil. And again, there's a link through the .gov.uk website for more information about the doctoral loan. Application and assessment. Application assessment is through student finance, through the student loans company, and it's an online application process, as you might expect. Eligibility I've mentioned, including previous study. So in the context of a master's and a PhD, it's got to be your first go. Application process opened in February 2020 last year. All sorts of things are delayed this year as a consequence of the pandemic, not least the opening dates for applications for student loans. You may find, but by the time you access this film, these slides, that the application process is open. So check the Student Loans Company, Student Finance England website to see. In any event, making a prompt application is always to be advised, not least because you've got a much greater prospect of your money arriving in time for the start of the course, which is always a benefit. So masters and doctoral loans, they are loans, and therefore the expectation is that they're repaid. And these next couple of slides deal with the process for repayment. Interest is charged on the loan, and that's calculated at retail price index, RPI plus 3%. And RPI currently runs at 2.6%, so calculated each September, so that at the moment it's 5.6%. So if come September this year, RPI is changed, then so too will the interest rate that's applied to your master's or doctoral loan change. And if yours is a doctoral loan, so that you're going into second, third, possibly fourth year, then your the interest rate will be subject to change on each September as you go through. Excuse me. Repayments are 6% of income over 21,000 and will look like this. And there's a table there that just sets out for you what monthly repayment, annual repayment would be dependent on annual salary. So £21,000 or less, there's no repayment because it's not above, you're not earning above the relevant threshold. At £25,000 a year salary, 4,000 of that, the marginal sum above the £21,000 threshold, is subject to the 6% calculation, and there are the figures: £18 a month, £216 across the year, and so on. Second slide on repayment of these loans. The debt is cancelled after 30 years. That's 30 years of completion or withdrawing or leaving the course anyway. Repayments begin in the April after you finish. So if you were to finish, for instance, in September 2022, then repayments would start from April, the start of the tax year of 2023. The repayments you make on a master's or doctoral loan are separate to, but concurrent with, your undergraduate loan. So your undergraduate loan will be calculated, your loan repayment for that. So too will your master's and or doctoral loan repayment, and both are repaid at the same time. It's significant to bear that in mind. This slide here sets out details of master's scholarships from within the university, and I'm not going to go through them in any great detail now. There simply isn't time in this presentation. But as I said earlier, I should ensure that you have access to the slides, so you have access to these links. The Postgraduate Alumni Scholarship and the Class of 2020-21 Progression Scholarship. So that for graduates of the university, there's a 10% reduction on first year fees. The Global Excellence Scholarship provides substantial bursary support for international students, £5,000 and £10,000, programme-specific scholarships. There's a link through to other university scholarships, and also the fourth bullet point there, a funding database tool available on the university's website for exploring what other sources of funding might be available for you from within the university. And then lastly, there's an external site, Find a Masters, which I recommend you have a look at too. PhD studentships, fully funded studentships are available, usually fees and living expenses, the latter circa £18,500 per annum. They're advertised from the autumn through early spring, so I think if you haven't already looked, then you need to get on and do that, so check now. Research councils and university funded PhD studentships might be available, and science-based ones regularly are tied to specific staff research projects. So I think you need to be exploring that now if you haven't done so already. Other sources of funding. You can only hold one university scholarship, but you can have as many small grants as you can get. The university runs or administers a Success for All fund, which is a sort of hardship fund for which there's wide-ranging eligibility, and it's designed to support a student in circumstances where the hardship that they encounter is unforeseen. There's quite a lot of employment opportunities, part-time, in the region, including on the campus, so you might want to explore those. If you're fortunate enough to have savings, or if you have inherited any money, then that might be a source of additional funding for you. Similarly, there are commercial loans available, in particular for postgraduate study. You might want to explore those as well. And there's charities, trusts, various funds and philanthropic bodies that might be sources of funding available to you. They're going to be highly dependent on the time and energy that you devote to exploring those, and also local education authorities and crowdfunding. Then if you already have a link with an employer, then if you haven't done so already, you might want to explore any sponsorship might be available through them. Ditto government sponsorship. If teacher training is where you're headed, then teacher training bursaries might be available. Similarly, social work bursaries, NHS bursaries, and another source of funding, albeit it's not going to pay for your tuition fees or your general living costs, but disabled students allowance. And lastly, there are another series of links you might want to explore for masters, doctoral, and that's repeat. The University of Exeter one is repeating one I'd already slotted into an earlier slide, which is postgraduate funding. That is a really quick whiz through funding for postgraduate study. There again is my name, Richard Scrace. Actually, it's the first time my name's gone up, but I said who I was and the role I perform. And there's my email address. So if you do have any specific questions you want to ask, please do email me, and I will reply with an answer to that question. Thanks for taking the time to watch and listen, and very best of luck in your future studies with the university. Thank you. Bye-bye.